I'm going to write this piece off to the side, f of a plus h minus f of a all over h. That is what we are trying to evaluate at this time. That's what we began practicing before. So this would be in your notes.
Oh, we did this one. Yeah, we did this one yesterday.
So we're going to do this one. I'm just writing that down so people can see it. Okay. So even though the function is called k, I'm going to use f in this situation, f of a, and f of a plus h. I plug in the a, and I get 2 over a plus 3. I plug in a plus h, and I get 2 over a plus h plus 3. Is everybody clear where I came up with those two? So then it tells us that we do what with those two things? We subtract them. So I write this out as 2 over a plus h plus 3 minus 2 over a plus 3. And that all sits over h. Notice in this situation I have a complex fraction. We dealt with complex fractions before, haven't we? Like we had a whole assignment on that. We tested on it. You guys did rather well with it. So in order to deal with this complex fraction, I must create a common denominator. So I'm going to multiply top and bottom by a plus 3. Top and bottom by a plus h plus 3. I distribute my positive 2, and I get 2a plus 6. Do I distribute a positive 2 or a negative 2? Negative 2, I get a minus 2a, I get a minus 2h, I get a minus 6. Over a plus 3, a plus h plus 3, and that all sits over h. I'm going to write as h over 1. I don't worry about multiplying out the denominator. Okay, just let it be. Yesterday I told you that if it doesn't have an h, it should cancel. So everything that doesn't have an h should go away. Notice here that the 2a and the negative 2a, those disappear. And notice that the positive 6 and the negative 6, those disappear. If that didn't happen, then that means you did something incorrect. Okay with that? All right. You can multiply by the reciprocal, 1 over h. Now notice what else happens. Your h reduces, leaving you with what in the numerator? Just my negative 2. And in the denominator, I have a plus 3 times a plus h plus 3. Okay. Questions? Any point you got lost? Okay, there you have it. That piece right there, that's with a fraction. So you have a couple problems like that in your assignment. The last kind of problem we want to encounter is this one right here. This one has a square root. And for this one, you're going to be getting some new learning, okay? Some new learning. f of a, square root of a plus 5. F of a plus h, square root of a plus h plus 5. Once I've identified those, I subtract them. Square root of a plus h plus 5 minus the square root of a plus 5 all over h. Now you kind of learn the trick here. We notice that there's a few things that happen. Number one, everything that doesn't have an a goes away, or everything that doesn't have an h goes away. But you can't really subtract off the a and the 5 until you get rid of the rid of the square root, right? And the other thing is we've always noticed that the h divides off in the denominator, but you know, I mean, if you did this on the test, that you'd be told, hey, you can't do that, can you? So it's like, what do we do? You know. And a lot of people in this situation, they're like, well, just square everything. You gotta be really careful when you say that. Suppose you have like the square root of x is equal to 5. Well, then if you square both sides, you get x is 25. Like that's okay. Like you could square that. But suppose you had like 3 over 8. You said, well, let's just square everything. Well, is 9 over 64 the same as 3 over 8? Absolutely not. So you can't just square certain things and maintain equality. It doesn't work like that. And so we run into this really, really tough scenario. And this is part of the new learning. And because it's new, this is some of the parts that people, on the test, they just kind of fall apart with because they don't learn things that are new. When we don't know how to do the math anymore, we have to turn somewhere else. We do Spanish instead. You know some Spanish?
Yeah.
Let us learn your ways, Diego. Homecoming king, right? Diego teaches class today. Diego, give me a verb in Spanish. Give me a verb, an example of a verb.
I don't even know what verb is. Run?
Okay.
I just speak it. I don't know
Okay.
the science behind it.
Time out. Who's taking Spanish here at the high school? Okay. Can you give me a verb?
Comer.
Comer. Does that mean to eat?
Yeah.
It does. Comer means to eat. It's a verb.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to say comer. I don't want to say to eat. I want to say I eat. Como. I don't want to say I eat. I want to say you eat.
Comes. Or comes.
Comes. I want to say we eat.
Comamos.
Comamos. Give Connor a round of applause. Let's just talk about that. This is important. Right now, you guys are like, okay, I think that Mr. Gantz is lost. No, trust me. I've been doing this a long, long time. Okay, follow me here. What did you just do? You conjugate. What does conjugate mean? You change the ending. We got to change the ending. Watch this. It's such a beautiful thing. And it's one of the most important pieces that you're going to learn in math as you move forward. If you don't get this, you're not going to be able to do like 6 other things in this class so we move on. Watch. I've got A plus B times A minus B. These are called conjugates because the ending was changed. Instead of A plus B, it's A minus B. I changed the ending. Watch what happens when we multiply conjugates. A times A is A squared. What happens to the middles? They cancel. And then the last part, you get a minus B squared, right? Look at that. Isn't that what we want to have happen? We want that thing to be squared, and we want that thing to be squared. Isn't that what we want? So if we take it and multiply it by its conjugate, we're going to get those two things squared, and the radical signs will just disappear. It's a great idea. So watch, it's going to look really messy, but please just hold on and bear with me as you see it. We're going to multiply by, we do the same thing. We do the square root of A plus H plus 5, and we do the square root of A plus 5, but what sign is going to go in the middle?
Plus.
plus, because it's the conjugate of this one. Okay, we're taking that whole thing multiplied by that whole thing. That's what we're doing. But I've also learned that when you have fractions, you can't just multiply the top, you have to multiply the bottom. Okay, you're almost there. This is the cool part now. So if I were to FOIL this out, I would take that times that, and I would get a plus h plus 5. And then if I multiplied the middles, what would happen? They'd go away. So then when I multiply the ends, I get a plus 5. Is it positive or negative? It's a negative a plus 5. I got to make sure I distribute that negative through. All over, then in the bottom we have h times parentheses, square root of a plus h plus 5, plus square root of a plus 5. Sweet. Now remember, our whole deal with this was we said everything that doesn't have an h should cancel. Does that happen? What goes away? We have the a, and we have a negative a, don't we? We have a positive 5, and then when we distribute the subtraction sign, that's a negative 5, isn't it? So those go away. Notice, what are you left with in the top? And what do you have in the bottom? And h divided by h is 1. So you get 1 over the square root of a plus h plus 5 plus the square root of a plus 5. Now I know that the denominator doesn't look pretty, but that's okay. It's still useful for us when we get to calculus. The key is we got rid of the h in the bottom, and everything that didn't have an h in the top canceled. And that's the key. Multiplying by the conjugate is a skill that we're going to use multiple times in this course. I want you to see it right now.